Hello and welcome to HITMC, where we love talking about the latest strategies, news, and insights from the world of healthcare marketing. I'm Colin Hung, and I'm sitting down today with my friend Jane Sarasohn Kahn, longtime member and friend of the HITMC community, health economist, advisor, author, trendweaver, and winner of the 2022 Medigy HITMC Award for Blog of the Year for her Health Populi blog. Jane, welcome to the program.
Colin, I'm so happy to see you and be with you. Thank you.
I can't wait to dive into what we're going to talk about today. And for those that are listening and watching, we're going to be talking about blogging and kind of how that's evolved and maybe how that's evolved into more of the influencer style or thought leader style of today. But let me start with this question for you, Jane. When did you start the Health Populi blog?
We are coming up on an important anniversary. So the timing of your request to talk today was so perfect. I started American Labor Day weekend 2007, which would be, this is mid-August right now, early August. So in about a month, it'll be 15 years since I started. It was Labor Day weekend. And what's really amazing, and you can find it online because that's the beauty of publishing a blog that long. The first blog was about healthcare costs and the price of gas. And it's like deja vu all over again. And I've covered that, because the economy goes up and down and such. It's unbelievable. It was such a deja vu to go back in anticipation of talking to you. And I saw, oh my God. And I feature a photo from Tom's Shell petrol station in New Jersey, where the gas was priced arm, leg, firstborn. And that photo, which you can still find in Google Images, I captured that 15 years ago. And of course, today, well, more like 2-3 weeks ago, or maybe last month, petrol prices were even more acutely painful. But yeah, what goes around comes around, and nothing's much new. So let's go back 15 years because we can still talk about it.
Oh, it sounds like maybe we're on a 15-year news cycle.
Right.
So what was the motivation for you to start that blog? Like what was that the inner fire that sort of drove you to do that?
Well, it really does take an inner fire, Colin. It has to be a passion project because it's a lot of work, and it's much more work than anybody realizes until they try it. The initial mentor and inspirer was our mutual great friend, Matthew Holt. Matthew and I go way back to his early days at Institute for the Future. When I started my business, Think Health, my advisory business, which is really how I make a living, not through the blog. Institute for the Future was a client of mine where I worked on their forecast. So they were one of my first clients when I went out on my own after working 10 years in big firms. And Matthew was a young graduate from Stanford's business school, not business school, public health, I guess, or no, public policy at Institute for the Future. So he and I tag teamed early on when we were both a lot younger and worked on forecasts together. Then he eventually morphed into the Health 2.0 persona that he is, always pioneering in digital health tech. And he founded the Healthcare blog. And that was like the best name of any blog ever. And it's still, of course, his. And so after a couple of years watching him do that, I said to him, I guess I should start blogging because I have a business. So it would be a way for me to bolster my persona online. Again, we're looking at 2006, 2007. And he said, oh, please, it will suck up all your time. Don't do it. Do not, it'll ruin your life. And I said, you know what? I'm a good risk manager. And I have a great husband and a little girl at the time who's now a grown young woman. But I knew I'd get a lot of support at home. And anyway, I launched it that September weekend in 2007, really focusing in on consumers, patients, the cost of care and health economics, which is my training, and digital health. This confluence of the consumer, tech, and costs has been really the focus. So that's how I started and named it Health Populi, with the public health mission, the health of the people. That's kind of where I come from. Grew up in Detroit, union household, et cetera. So you can't take the DNA out of the girl. Anyway, that's been the name from the beginning, Health Populi, and I guess it's worked.
It totally it's worked. I mean, it like other blogs of that time have become the standard by which others are now judge themselves. So no, it's great. I mean, it's so interesting to hear that origin story of that blog, how just you decided, hey, it was time and it was something that was going to help your business, and
Yeah.
and that's great. I mean, and has it? Anyway.
Oh yeah. That's the only reason to do it, really, because one, I don't accept ads, never have. I don't accept guest posts, and I get requests several times a week through the blog. Can I write for you? Can I write? And I'm like, no, thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you. It's my voice, and it has to be, because that's really the brand. So when your first note here is, if you're going to do this and be worthwhile, it must be your brand, your authentic voice. And so that's, I committed to myself that I would not make money off of it, that it would be a fact that day or several times a week. That was interesting to me, in that confluence of tech, consumers, costs, policy. And yeah, that's really how it's grown, sticking to the knitting. I really stuck to that core voice mission. And I think that's really important when you work alone, like I do. And it had to feed the work, because again, I wasn't taking a penny for that. So what was my ROI? I do 3 things in my work to make a living. And people don't realize I'm not a journalist. I just write a lot. But I speak for money in companies, at town halls, at conferences within companies. Some companies are my retainer clients, where I might speak for a half an hour every other month at a town hall, or other business models there. I write, not the blog, but white papers, market research reports with clients where my name is on it and theirs. And then of course I advise in terms of strategy, a lot of scenario planning now about what's the future of X in healthcare. So that's really my bread and butter, is looking at the future and helping organizations in health anticipate where the puck is going. You're Canadian, I'm from Detroit, hockey. So there we go. But one of my most important skills, and this is something I'm good at, is anticipating what's around the corner. And so that is part of my competencies and again, my living. But the blog has to feed that. So the research, it's a research intense blog. So what I write about feeds my fodder for strategic and scenario planning. So every time I write a blog, that goes in here. And that's really the workflow. So when friends of mine who aren't in the business say, oh, you spend so much time on that blog, can't you outsource it or get an assistant to do the research? And it's like, no, because it's how my brain works. It comes in, it sticks. And over the 30 years of a career in health policy, health consumerism, it's all in there still. And as long as I stay compos mentis, it hopefully is creating wisdom over time with age and the workflow. So the blog is part of the whole package of me, Think Health, Health Populi blog.
Well, it's fantastic that the blog has helped not only drive some business for your mainline business, but also it's part of your thinking process and your work process. It's truly integrated.
Yeah. And it has to be, because it's an investment of time. And I mean, time is money. And you have to say, is there an ROI on this? And when the ROI stops, I will quit. The blog will stop. For now, it works for this business model. So yeah, you're very smart to realize it's all integrated in my workflow, and has a payback in getting my word out, my brand out, and people who choose to work with me know a lot about how I think and how I see the world. So if people don't want to hear about public health, whether you're a pharma or a health plan or a tech company, they don't really, they know they shouldn't work with me, because I'm going to talk about social determinants and civil healthcare as a civil right, because as an economist, I believe that that has an ROI. So, I mean, there's a point of view that's known for the 15 years I've been public. And so again, that helps me in business because people know what they're getting. I am transparent.
What's different now, in your opinion, of the media landscape versus back in 2006 when you started your blog?
Yeah. Well, we didn't have a lot of serious healthcare blogs then. Matthews, of course. We had two really interesting hospital blogs. We had Nick Jacobs, who wrote about being a hospital CEO, and we had Paul from Massachusetts, Dr. Paul, I should remember his name already, but there were two hospital operators, CEOs, who were very serious about healthcare, and a few others. So back then, you could stand out in terms of, there was a list of 20. Well,
Right.
Now, as you know, because you assess these things, there are thousands of sites, WordPress sites. And now, of course, we then fast forward to TikTok and then everything in between, and beautiful videos of, Dr. Z Dog, and who does a brilliant job, but that ain't me. So that suits his brand and his messaging. And mine is more sort of wonky data chart, and that's the medium I'm comfortable with. But the beauty now is, depending on your personality and your messaging, you can find the right platform, create your own voice that way. And so now it can be even more personalized that way. But I find there are people who will still read a blog, and I try not to be too long-winded, because that bugs me when people are writing the War and Peace. Would that I could be as concise as Seth Godin. That's always the gold standard for me. Can I get the wonk down in 3 paragraphs? Very hard to do in healthcare. So, but we try, I try to be concise. So that's one of the things that's different. And then what's also different now is there's a lot of crap in terms of non-facts out there, or alternative facts. And that in our industry is really painful and challenging, as we have found during the pandemic, and even before, when the anti-vax movement was marginal. Now, of course, it's a thing, more mainstream. So, that then becomes a challenge. How do you cut through that noise? And the only way I know how to do that is to use really good sources of data, have a lot of friends in the industry at all the big consulting firms and market research firms who share data with me that I can use, from the Edelmans to the Harrises to the Gallups to a lot of proprietary firms like IRI that has grocery store data, which is really important now for health. So I've made a lot of friends over the years who are really generous, and I'm respectful of what they share with me. And that's really important too, because I take an ecosystem view, which is, again, a little bit different. I don't write just about pharma or hospitals or food, but all of it to feed and bolster the holistic health and retail health point of view that I've adopted in the last decade or so.
I know maybe at the beginning you were looked at as a healthcare blogger. At least that's how maybe people were labeling you. I think today, if someone were to label what you're doing, at least on your public persona side, I would think people would label you as a healthcare influencer. Do you feel that you are a healthcare influencer, Jane, given all the accomplishments and things you have done?
I mean, it's nice to know that you and John Lynn have appointed me that, and I'm on lists that say I'm a healthcare healthcare influencer. It's really hard to influence healthcare because it's so fragmented and there are so many voices. If I do influence, I hope I'm influencing particularly to bolster health and wellness for the patient, the consumer, the caregiver. My bias, particularly in the last 10, 15 years, has really been to work on that side of things with all these different clients across the whole ecosystem to try to make healthcare better with the quadruple aim in mind: better healthcare experience, lower costs per patient. Some people are more expensive than others, and that's appropriate, but we just want to make sure the money we spend on everybody is efficient money with a ROI for them. And then, of course, looking at the fourth leg of the stool, which is caregiver, provider wellness. When I say caregiver, I mean the healthcare provider, who's, of course, burned out even before the pandemic. And now this is the next crisis of mental health, which is not just amongst us citizens, but amongst providers as well. So that's the side of things I really want to focus on these days. If I'm influencing, that's where I would like to be influencing.
Well, I hear what you're saying in that I don't think it's a title anyone would personally adopt. At least I hope not. But it's certainly a title that I think people would bestow upon someone like you, because just with your writing and all of the work that you do with the companies and at conferences and everything, I certainly view you as an influencer and am influenced by your work. So
thank you.
So maybe next year we'll give you that title on a plaque or something there, Jane.
Oh, good.
But I do like I want to circle back to something you said before. I do like how you put that it's no longer that you are tied to a medium. You essentially now have so much choice where you can find the medium that best suits you. It's not, that could be TikTok, it could be Instagram, it could be video, it could be written, it could be audio only. There's a lot of people who just do podcasts.
Yeah.
I think before we were pretty restricted in, like, you either blogged or that was it, or you posted maybe on Facebook, but that would be odd at that time. But nowadays you can really fit your personality, and I think we're less seen as, oh, you're a TikToker or you are just a Facebook person. No, you are a thought leader in the industry. You just happen to be using these things.
Mm-hmm. I was using Pinterest for a while to post graphic things. I did it for a few years, and that's still out there, but it really wasn't working in my workflow that much. But I do like Instagram and Pinterest for the visual snapshotty things where you can create portfolios of things. It's not suiting, again, my workflow now, but I like those media, those channels as well. And I think Instagram, certainly in mental health, with the drawbacks that have been pointed out, can be really useful because it's community and active. And I'm hopeful that we can see more and more of these media be applied to help people find community, particularly in times of anxiety and stress.
Jane, what advice would you have for someone who's thinking about, or maybe just starting down this road of creating content for public consumption, whether that's related to their business or whether that's just something that they want to do? What advice would you give them?
Well, you suggested one of the most important things right at the start, which is passion. So this, life is short, carpe diem. Make sure you want to put the time into this, because it will take time. And so in the balanced life, I pray that everybody lives and embraces, because life isn't just work or family or faith, but it's everything. So, if you want to do this, go out there with your voice. One, what are you passionate about? The second thing is find that voice. So there's so much noise. There's so many people, again, engaging in these communities, which is terrific. But make sure you find the voice, like I found with the consumer and tech and economics, etc., and find a niche where, this then creates your brand. Small b, I'm not all about my brand and ego, but again, to cut through the noise, because you could do a vanity project and just write and write, and the tree falls in the forest and nobody hears you. If that's what you want to do, then it's your diary, it's your journal, that's fine. But if it's your diary and journal, I'd rather you do this kind of thing and keep a journal like I do, which you don't see, but I do. And that's therapy too. But in terms of digital and interactive, you want interaction, so, and influence. So the voice, passion, and then I would finally argue and advocate for authenticity. Be true to your message, be strong, because the downside in this 2.0 world is that people will push back against you. So there are two negatives that I've experienced, and I will be frank about this. One is sometimes you have trolls and people who are really mean-spirited, who say dumb or wrong or mean things in places like LinkedIn or Twitter. And you have to figure out, how are you going to deal with that? So that's number one. And number two, which really bugs me, is when people scrape my content using my phrasing, which is unique in sometimes to me. You kind of know when you're reading me when I write about everyday people and Sly and the Family Stone and, the pop culture stuff, or Legos especially, or cooking. And then I see it on somebody else's blog, and they're not linking to me, attributing to me, or saying, oh, Jane inspired me to say that. And that's all I want, is to, again, this is community. So when that happens, I go and connect with that person on LinkedIn, if I can find them, and say, really? Did you really mean to do that? I don't get lawyers involved because, why? But I really do follow up with people. And I often don't know this is happening, but friends will say, I just read something. It sounded like something you've said before. So those two darker things really bother me. And be aware, be prepared, because you have to figure out, how are you going to follow up with that? Be kind, be generous, share. That's what this is for. So that's where I am on that.
Oh, that is fantastic advice, and something you said earlier around the work. It takes work and effort, and it better be a passion project, because there are going to be times where you're just like, why am I doing this? Why am I up late writing this? Is anyone reading this? But as long as you've got that inner fire, then it doesn't really matter who's reading it. You're doing it to hopefully influence even just one person out there.
Yeah, and again, in commercial terms, to feed my business, I get asked to speak from people who've never met me, who read the blog to say, that is what we want to hear about in this company right now. Can you be online for a half an hour next month? And that's exciting, and that's global. I get requests for that kind of thing, and that's when I know I'm having an influence, that people who've never met me before touch base and reach out. And that's why you want to keep your LinkedIn. There's the other advice: keep your LinkedIn profile fresh all the time. That's worth the time, because LinkedIn is where so many people today anyway find you and me.
Absolutely. Fantastic advice, Jane, as always, and always such a pleasure to talk to you and have you on the program.
Thank you, my old dear friend, and I hope I see you soon.
I hope so too. The fall conference season hopefully is coming up, and we'll have a chance to get together in person, because it always is so much fun.
Thank you, Colin.
Oh, and before we go, where can people go to find out more information about you? What are the websites?
Thank you. Well, we've done a refresh on the Health Populi site. So everything is on Health Populi now. How to get in touch with me, my business models of writing, speaking, and advising. So it's just Health Populi, healthpopuli.com. And then you can see about Jane, how to contact Jane, events where I'm speaking, showing up, etc. So healthpopuli.com, and on Twitter at Healthy Thinker, because my company is called Think Health. So I am Healthy Thinker on Twitter.
Amazing. Amazing. Jane, thank you so much for your time. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Colin. Great to be with you.
Hey, if you enjoyed this interview as much as I did, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give us a review on iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you're listening and watching. Also, head on over to hitmic.com to access free resources, industry news, and insightful articles. You can also connect with us on Twitter using the hashtag HITMC. I'm Colin Hung, along with Jane. Thanks for being here.